Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 2, Strangers. And this episode was definitely very different than the premiere. I definitely really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was amazing, especially the ending. I can already tell the season is going to be absolutely fantastic, and there's a lot of things I really like that they did with this episode. First of all, this episode really was very dialogue driven. There wasn't a whole lot of action going on, but that does not mean that it wasn't exciting. Now, last year, they did these sort of dialogue driven episodes where it wasn't exactly exciting. However, there's so much excitement going on. So much happened last week that this episode could not have been nearly as intense as last week's. We knew that wasn't going to be. However, there is a lot of tension definitely going on, and I really definitely do like that about this episode. So let's just get to it, because overall, I thought this episode was great, and I loved it. So, basically, we kind of see in the beginning, there's like this montage of all them walking. We see a shot of smoke billowing up from Terminus, and Carl is feeding Judith a bottle, and Glenn and Maggie are sharing a romantic kiss, and Rick is talking to Tara, and he says how she didn't want to be there, and that's why he wanted to talk to her. And Rick adds that Glenn told him that she saved his life, which she did, and Tara replies that Glenn saved her life as well, and Tara holds out her hand to give Rick a fist pump, and I like the friendship that's going on between them. I definitely really enjoyed that, and he looks at her for a second before laughing and connecting on her fist bump, and Rick tells Tara to get something to eat, and they start back at sunup. So, then we see that it's the next day, and Rick and his group of walkers, and I really like this next scene, they're walking through the woods, and Tyrese is getting water with Carol, and he talks to Carol about what she did at the prison, because she pretty much turned, we know what she did, and Tyrese says that he talked to Rick, and some of the others know about it and accept it, the whole thing about Carol killing Karen and David, Tyrese is pretty much accepted, but that he needs to talk to the rest to make sure they accept it. So that was really interesting, definitely. And Tyrese says they don't need to tell them about the girls. And of course, they don't need to tell them about what happened to Lizzie and now I can't remember her name. Those two girls, I can't remember their names now, but you guys know who I'm talking about. But when Carol asks why, Tyrese replies that he just needs to forget it. Pretty much because I think it was too hard for him to remember. And Tyrese is such a family man now that I feel like things like that, he was pretty much a father. He was pretty much a second father to those girls. So it's very hard for him to remember that. And it was definitely one of the harsh decisions they had to make. So I definitely agree, Tyrese. They just need to forget it. So then we see a lone walker wanders up to the group. And Michonne Dryway is like, I got it. And she hits the walker with the butt of her gun. Of course, she does not have her sword, so that's unfortunate, but that was awesome. And she steps on the walker's head, crushes its head with the stock of her gun, and Abraham tells Rosita right there is why we're waiting for our moments. And I thought that was a very good scene, and, one of the things I definitely really enjoyed about it is, I really like seeing how they really are a family now. They're all very united, and I definitely really enjoy that now. So, Carol's giving Rick back the watch that he had given to Sam, who they had met on this, Sam, of course, was killed in Terminus, and Rick, that was when Rick banished Carol from the group, and Carol said that she recovered it from Terminus, and Rick reveals to Carol that he saw Sam, and Rick tells Carol he saw them, he saw them kill him, and Rick tells Carol that he still doesn't know about what she did, and he says that he sent her away to this, and they are now joining her, and he asks Carol if she will have them, and when Carol nods yes, Rick says thank you. So Daryl and Carol, they're all sitting alone in the woods, and Daryl looks over silently at Carol, and Carol says, I don't want to talk about it, I can't, I just need to forget, and Daryl says, alright, they hear a noise in the woods, but Daryl looks around and says it's nothing, and, the episode's already very intense at this point, and they hear a sound, they quickly draw their guns, but it's just Daryl with a bunch of dead squirrels, and Rick asks Daryl about what he heard last night, and Daryl says it's more than he felt someone was watching them. He definitely feels like someone's watching them. And of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, Gareth's not dead, so maybe Gareth was watching them. That's kind of what I was thinking. I was thinking that Gareth was definitely watching them, and maybe Gareth, is, sort of spying on them, because, he's pretty much lost at this point. He doesn't have anyone left in his group, so maybe he wants to sort of recruit people, and I thought that's what was gonna sort of happen there, so Abraham then talks to Rick about heading to Washington because, that's basically where they want to go next is Washington. And Bob and Sasha are joking back and forth with one another. Sasha says a complaint, and Bob responds by putting in a positive light. The group hears someone screaming for help. Rick hesitates, but Carol insists that they go help. Rick's group races through the woods. They find this preacher on a big rock, which is surrounded by walkers. And the guy that played the preacher, Father Gabriel, is the guy that played Dr. Deaton on Teen Wolf. That's the same guy. I think it is. I'm pretty sure. He at least looked like him. I'm pretty sure that's the same guy. But this scene was definitely very well done. And Rick tells the preacher to come on down off the rock, and we meet our new character, Father Gabriel. And Rick asks the preacher if he's okay, and the preacher throws up after he regains his composure. The preacher introduced himself as Gabriel, and Rick asked Gabriel, and I really like that he said this, because if you remember the first episode of Season 4, Rick encountered that woman, who was like half walker, half human, and he asked her these questions, and he asked Gabriel the same question. I'm glad he did. So he says if he has any weapons, he says he doesn't have any weapons. The Word of God is all the protection he needs. And, he asked him the same 3 questions. How many walkers have you killed? How many people have you killed? And why? And Daryl says it sure didn't look like it, and Gabriel says he called for help and help came. And he asked him if they had any food, and he says whatever he had left hit the ground, and Carl offers Gabriel some food, and Gabriel looks at Judith and says it's a beautiful child, and Gabriel asks if they have a camp, but Rick says they do not, and asks Gabriel if he does, and Gabriel says, he then talks about how he didn't kill any of the walkers. And Gabriel says he's not a sinner, that he sins almost every day, but he confesses his sins to God, not strangers. And that's why this episode is pretty much called Strangers, because to Gabriel, they really are strangers. However, to them, Gabriel is a stranger. And I really like the way they showed, them being with Gabriel. Gabriel's a very different person in the group. Most of the people in the group, will kill someone if they have to. Gabriel doesn't seem like he would kill anyone, really. It doesn't seem like Gabriel will kill someone. I don't know if he would. I honestly don't know if Gabriel would go ahead and kill someone. I'm not going to say he wouldn't, but I don't know if he'd be as willing to kill someone as, say, Carol or Rick or Carl or Daryl or Glenn or any of the people in the group. I don't think he's as willing. So, definitely they have a very difficult decision to make with Gabriel. So, Rick asked Gabriel if he was watching them last night, but Gabriel says that he keeps to himself because they're pretty sure that someone is stalking them at this point. So, Rick and the group head toward Gabriel's church, and he jokes that maybe he's leading them into a trap to take all their squirrels, but no one's laughing. They don't realize that he's joking. And Gabriel says members of his congregation told him that his sense of humor left much to be desired. They go to the church, and I thought this was very well done because, again, to them, Gabriel is a stranger. And so Rick goes to look around. He wants to make sure there's nothing bad in there. They come across the church. They see various religious items, including hammer and sculptures, children's artwork. And they finish their search and go back outside. And it's very different for them because Gabriel really is just a peaceful person. He's not someone who's malicious. He's not violent. He is just very different from anyone else they've ever encountered. So I thought his character is definitely very interesting because of that. They've never really had someone who they can trust, definitely. So it was very interesting to see this. So Rick and their group finish their search. They go back outside, and Abraham says there's a short bus out back, and Gabriel says he doesn't need it, and Abraham pitches that they need to continue on their mission to Washington. However, Rick insists that they need to gather supplies first and go back into the church. So one by one, each member of the group is telling Abraham that they're going to follow whatever Rick does, because basically Rick is the leader of the group now. And Gabriel says he's cleaned out every place nearby for supplies and food except for one, which is overrun by walkers. So Rick asks how many walkers, and Gabriel says a dozen or so, and Rick says they can handle a dozen. So Tyrese agrees to stay and watch Judith, because, he's basically, as I said, the family man right now. So Rick tells Tyrese he's grateful for everything he's done, and Gabriel offers to draw them a map, but Rick says Gabriel's coming with them. So I thought this next scene was very well done, because Rick tells Carl, Rick asks Carl if he trusts Gabriel. And I agree what Carl says. Not everyone is bad, Pretty much everyone they've encountered has been bad, so I do understand Rick's logic, but at the same time, I do agree with Carl. Not everyone they're going to encounter is a bad guy. Not everyone they're going to encounter is going to want to hurt them. Not everyone they're going to encounter is like the governor or the people at Terminus. Not everyone is like that. I definitely agree with Carl there. But Rick tells Carl he doesn't trust Gabriel, and that's why he's bringing Gabriel with them, and he tells Carl that he needs to stay with Tyrese and protect Judith. And he tells him that, I really like this quote, he says he's not safe, reminds him to never let his guard down. And Carl tells Rick that he's right, but they are strong, and they are strong enough, and they can help people, and they don't have to hide. So they all head out for supplies, and Bob starts talking to Rick about Washington, but Rick says he hasn't decided if they're going, because he doesn't know where they're going yet, and Bob says that Washington is going to happen, that he's calling it already, that he pretty much thinks that they're gonna be able to head to Washington. My prediction, I don't think they're gonna get to Washington. I really don't feel they're going to, especially after what happens later, but basically I don't really think they're going to get to Washington. I really don't feel they're going to. So then we see, so Daryl and Carol are walking with water jugs, and Daryl said that he gets that she doesn't want to talk about it, and they come across an abandoned car, and Carol goes to check it, but the car won't start. So she checks the trunk, and there's a battery charger in the trunk, and Daryl says whatever happened, happened, and they can start over. So Carol says they should keep the car a secret in case their group needs it later to escape, which is definitely very convenient for them, because if they want to go to Washington, they can just use the car. It's perfect. They can just use the car, and everything will be fine. So Maggie and Tara are talking outside a gun shop, and they hear a noise inside and draw their guns. And Glenn comes out, and they ask Glenn if it was a walker. And Glenn initially says yes, before admitting that he actually tripped over a mop and boxes. And he reveals that he found some silencers. So meanwhile, Rick, Gabriel, and the group are reaching for a food bank, and Rick goes inside and he finds a bunch of walkers have fallen into a hole in the floor. The walkers are wandering around the water, and there are shelves of food all around them, because, Gabriel warned them earlier that he has about a dozen or so walkers, so, definitely they're very concerned right now. So Rick and his group prepare to go down in the hole to get the food, and Rick tells Gabriel that he's coming down with them, and Rick and his group use the shelves to block the walkers. They stab the walkers from behind the shelves while gathering food. And Gabriel looks at one female walker with glasses, and he starts to freak out. He takes off running and tries to climb some stairs that break. And again, Gabriel, here's the thing with Gabriel. I understand that he doesn't want to fight, but eventually he's going to have to if he wants to protect himself. Because if he doesn't fight, he's going to get himself killed. And I don't know if Gabriel really realizes that if he doesn't fight, he will get himself killed. And definitely something bad will happen to him. So Rick says they have to go get Gabriel. They push the shelves over to trap some of the walkers. The walker with glasses is hanging straight at Gabriel. Rick grabs it, bashes its head in, and Bob trips over a walker in the water, struggles with the walker before Sasha comes over to help. So then outside the food bank, Gabriel is apologizing for panicking, and Rick asks Gabriel if he knew her when she was alive, and Gabriel doesn't say anything. So my question is, did he really know this walker when she was alive? So Rick says he gets it if that Gabriel only tells his sins to God, and Rick sort of is understanding Gabriel now, and I definitely like that. So they're heading back with food, and Rick asks Michonne if she misses her sword, but Michonne's, and I definitely really enjoyed this scene, because, Michonne's with her sword. Her sword is basically what keeps her alive, what keeps her human, what keeps her from not getting attacked. So I definitely thought this was a very good scene. Michonne says she misses Andrea and Herschel, but not the sword. And I definitely like that, because it really shows the importance of family that they have. They really are a group of family. And I'm going to keep referring to them as a family, because if you think about it, they are not only a tag team now, they are a family. They will always protect each other, and that's what matters to them, is their family. So back at the church, Rick goes around and back and tells Carl that they found food, and Carl points out that some scratches on the wall, and he says they're deep like knives for people trying to get in, and Carl says there's something else that he found. But Carl says what he found doesn't mean Gabriel's a bad guy, but it means something, because Gabriel probably would not do this, because Carl shows Rick that scratched in the wall of the church, and it says four very important words: you'll burn for this. And I was just like, okay, this episode's about to get really intense, because this episode really reminded me of when they were at the prison. This is definitely more interesting than when they were at the prison, because when they were at the prison, it was definitely very slow moving. It was not interesting. Here, it's much more interesting, because they're not outside anymore. They're inside, they're safe, and it definitely is a lot more interesting. What I really like is that they think that they're safe. This always happens. They think they're safe, but they're really not safe. And they know they're now sort of starting to realize that they're not safe. And I feel they're not going to be, safe as this goes on. So inside the church that night, Abraham is raising a toast to the survivors. I thought this was a very good scene. And Abraham asks the group if survivors is all they want to be. And Abraham then makes the pitch that if they get Eugene to Washington, he will help make the dead die so the living can live again. And Eugene says there are supplies and infrastructure in Washington to help people survive. Because, again, Eugene knows how this outbreak happened. He knows how the virus occurred. And I definitely think this is very interesting because if they go to Washington, but here's my thing though. If we find out what the cure is, if we find out the cure to the walkers, then it definitely makes the show interesting, but I feel that the show should not last that much longer. So that's my only thing. I don't feel they're going to get to Washington specifically because of that. So Abraham tells the group that they can be safe in Washington and save the world for Judith, for themselves, and the people out there that they don't have nothing left to do but survive. So after Abraham's speech, Judith mumbles something. It was really a cute scene. And Rick says Judith must know what his answer is going to be. And Rick says if Judith is in, then he's in. And Rick says, let's do it. And Sasha gives Bob a kiss. He asks for one more. Sasha goes to hold the baby. Bob wanders off. And Tara sits down next to Maggie. And I thought the scene was so well done because Maggie and Tara, they've been bonding a lot, but Maggie didn't really know who Tara was, why she was there, what her importance was. And she finally tells Maggie that she was at the prison with the governor, and Tara says she didn't know who he was and what he could do. And because, Maggie, Tara, Lily, and Megan fell for the governor. They fell for the governor's tricks. They thought he was this guy named Brian. They thought that he was not who he said he was. So, Tara definitely feels very upset still, and I like seeing that Tara still kind of hasn't gotten over that, because definitely something like that you would not get over. I personally probably, if I trusted someone and I shouldn't have, I probably wouldn't have gotten over it either, so I agree with Tara. Definitely that was the right thing to do, and I'm glad she told Maggie, because Maggie needs to know that. So, basically, Maggie acts surprised, but Tara says she didn't want it to be hidden that she was there. Maggie says she's with them now, and I thought that was a great scene because Tara kind of has felt very apart from the group, and now she is a part of the group, and she's happy that she is, because initially she wasn't originally part of the group, but now that she is part of the group, she's happy about it. So, Rick then thanks Gabriel for the hospitality and sharing his communion wine, and Gabriel says there isn't anyone left to take communion, and Rick says Gabriel's hiding something, and Rick says these people are his family, and if what Gabriel's hiding hurts them in any way, they will kill him, and that's true. So, I really like that Rick said they are his family, because they are. So, Carol is then back at the car she found earlier with Daryl, and she's just finished charging the battery, and a walker comes stumbling out of the woods. Carol stabs the walker in the head, and then Daryl wanders out of the woods and asks Carol what she's doing. And a car is speeding by, and Daryl looks, and it's the same car with the cross in the back windshield that took Beth. And that made me very interesting, because here's the thing. We still have no idea who took Beth. So, Carol's very confused, but Daryl explains it's the car that took Beth, and he realizes this, and he's very pissed at this. So, Daryl and Carol take off in pursuit of the car that passed by, and they're basically going to go to find Beth. That's basically what's going to happen here, and I know that they said we're going to find out what happened to Beth, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happened to her, definitely, because that's definitely something we need to find out. So, then the end of the episode was just crazy. This was very intense, and it was really awesome. So Bob is outside staring at everyone celebrating inside the church. He wanders off through the woods, starts sobbing in a tree, and someone in a hoodie comes up, hits Bob in the head from behind. He falls to the ground. There's a scratch mark shown on the tree that Bob was leaning on. So he's trying to regain consciousness, and he sees the guy with the hoodie, and there's a fire in the background, and it turns out to be Gareth. And I thought this was awesome. I thought this was just such a well-done scene. I was like, oh my god, yes, I knew that Gareth was the one that was spying on them. And he tells him that the good news is that he's not dead yet. And Gareth also warns Bob not to read too much into the word yet, that it'll just drive him crazy. And Gareth says that they didn't want to hurt them before. And Gareth says that Bob and his people took away their home. And Gareth says that in order to survive, they had to become hunters. Which is true, and we saw that last week. So, back at the church, Gabriel's looking at a picture of himself with the girl with the glasses, and he prays. And Rick and his group are still drinking the wine and celebrating. They think they're all back together and happy. They think everything is okay. They have no idea what's going on here. They have no idea that, Gareth's out there. And this is very well done. So back at the campfire, Gareth is telling Bob that they have devolved into hunters. And Gareth says that nothing that happens to him now is personal. He says they would have done to basically any member of the group. And he says no matter how much they hate this ugly business, that they have to survive. And we see that Bob's leg is gone. And that was huge. I was not expecting that at all. Now we understand why Bob was so upset. His leg is completely gone. And Gareth says a man's got to eat. He takes a bite of meat, and Gareth says if it makes you feel any better, you must taste much better than what we thought you would. And the camera pans to Bob's foot cooking on a fire, and then you know that shit is about to go down. And that was the perfect way to end the episode, in my opinion. I love that ending. And honestly, here's my prediction. I really feel that the people in, the people in that used to be in Terminus are going to probably just start doing the same thing to literally every other member of the group. I think Bob is going to die. I don't think he's going to get out of this. And Rick, meanwhile, and all the others, they have no idea that this is going on. They have no idea. Daryl and Carol are safe because they're going to go search for Beth. So that's basically going to be their mission. And one of the things I love about this season is, last season, they did these kind of episodes where they were very dialogue driven. There wasn't a lot going on. This episode, there was a lot going on, but not as much in, action. It wasn't like last week's episode where there was so much action and, so much suspense and everything. This episode had a lot of tension. You knew there was a lot of tension coming. You knew there was a lot, heading there, and I really like that because this episode was not filler. And, last year, they had an episode that was very much like this, in the prison. It was called, I believe it was episode 3, Isolation, where basically nothing happened, and we found out, one big thing at the end. That was very much like this episode, except this episode actually had interesting stuff happen, and I actually liked what was going on. So, I definitely really enjoyed what happened in this episode. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens in the next episode. My other question is, definitely, Gabriel knows that girl. I want to find out maybe a little bit more about Gabriel. Do you think that the group trusts Gabriel? I think at this point they do, but I'm not sure what's going to happen. Who kidnapped Beth? I'm definitely, Daryl and Carol are going to find out who kidnapped Beth. We'll have to see what happens there. Did you like seeing the Tara storyline? I personally really like that. Also, who do you think that Terminus is coming after next? I'm definitely interested in seeing what's going to happen there. My other prediction is that they're not actually going to kill everyone. What they're going to do is they're going to actually have people work for them, because Gareth's pretty much alone. He has a few people working with him, but he needs to kind of restart his group and start over because most of the people that he was working with are dead, so he kind of needs to start over, and I'm looking forward to seeing what definitely is going to happen there. But that's it for my review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. And I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for tonight's episode of Homeland. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.